Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. The BC NDP holds on to their majority. 3 judicial recounts are done, with just 22 votes making the difference in a critical riding. Plus, back to the table. Negotiations over a lockout at BC ports are set to resume.
If there's any economic impact, it is the big boss's fault. They have locked out these workers.
With work at a standstill, the federal NDP are now weighing in and paying tribute to Indigenous veterans.
It's definitely an overwhelming feeling.
A new generation remembers the stories, contributions, and the loss.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Michelle Ghoussoub. Thanks for joining us. The BC NDP has held on to its majority following 3 judicial recounts. It came down to a razor-thin margin. Janella Hamilton joins us live with the latest. Janella, take us through the results of these critical recounts for the NDP.
Michelle, Elections BC says the recounts are complete for 3 ridings, including Surrey-Guildford, Kelowna Centre, and Prince George Mackenzie. In some of those ridings, it was a close one. Let's take a look. All eyes have been on Surrey-Guildford, where NDP candidate Gary Begg received 8,947 votes compared to the Conservative candidate who received 8,925, a difference of just 22 votes. And in the riding of Kelowna Centre, Conservative Christina Lowen won by 40 votes. That's up from 38 votes before the recount. And finally, in Prince George Mackenzie, where a box with 861 ballots was left uncounted, the BC Conservatives have won the riding by more than 5,000 votes.
So, Janella, this is the news the NDP have been waiting for. What comes next?
That's right, Michelle. Almost 3 weeks after the initial vote, the NDP has held on to its 1-seat majority with a total of 47 seats. Elections BC says certification will happen next week following an appeal period. Premier David Eby's new cabinet is set to be sworn in on November 18th. Michelle?
Thanks, Janella. The BC Port lockout has entered its 5th day. Hundreds of workers rallied near the docks in East Vancouver, demanding a new contract. BC Port employers and union reps are expected to meet with federal mediators this weekend. As John Hernandez reports, many small business owners are growing increasingly concerned over disruptions to the supply chain.
It's really difficult because it's hard for us to plan and let people know dates.
These lovely colors, and they've got these beautiful sheen. These are all hand-loomed in India.
There's only so much carpet in stock at Vancouver's Banner Carpets. The store's VP getting increasingly anxious over the port lockout, which could lead to delays and disgruntled customers.
Currently, we have a container leaving next week, so we are very closely watching this to see what's going to happen, because typically it's coming from Europe.
But no one is pushing the panic button yet.
So we are really hoping that maybe by the time the container hits Canada, it's cleared up and everything's okay.
What do you want? Contract! When do you want it? Now!
The work stoppage started on Monday. 700 port foremen locked out amid stalled negotiations. The union's primary demand is to protect jobs from automation.
The employers say automation is inevitable. We need to be more efficient and safer. What they're not saying is they want to get rid of good-paying jobs.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh rallied alongside them Friday, calling on Ottawa not to legislate a return to work.
The workers are asking for fairness. If Justin Trudeau and the Liberals bring in legislation that undermines these workers, it's just favoring bosses that are ripping off or hurting workers. It's wrong.
The Prime Minister said his cabinet is urging both sides to get back to the bargaining table.
In their disagreements, they are hurting Canadians, workers, farmers, union members right across the country for every minute they don't develop a solution.
The Retail Council of Canada warns that if the standstill continues, it could lead to empty shelves come the holiday season. Employers and union reps have agreed to resume negotiations on Saturday. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Remembrance Day is just a few days away, and people in Kelowna are marking the occasion by visiting the Field of Crosses Memorial.
I'm sad that people died, young men and women both died, and I'm happy that we're alive to breathe and continue walking today.
It just means remembering our past and remembering how we got here.
There are 134 names carved into Kelowna's cenotaph and 240 crosses at the Field of Graves Memorial, honoring soldiers with ties to the city. Local regiments enlisted people from right across the region, not just Kelowna, and they were remembered today.
It would be really great if there were no more, but we need to remember and honor those who have fought in wars in the past.
The ceremony at the cenotaph in Kelowna's City Park will take place between 11 and 11:30 on Monday. Anyone going is encouraged to plan ahead, as there will be road closures and parking restrictions. And today is National Indigenous Veterans Day, a day to recognize the many sacrifices made by the First Nations, Métis and Inuit soldiers who served and are still serving in Canada's military. Indigenous veterans and families gathered in Victory Square to remember the contributions made and reflect on the ways the government treated the returning veterans.
Finally, people are recognizing that we were treated unfairly. My great-grandfather was an engineer in World War I, and he came home to nothing. He was not given anything, and in fact, land was taken away from him.
Adam says he hopes for more spaces and cenotaphs to remember the Indigenous veterans. Our Wamish Hamilton brings us the story of one soldier, a Sushot hereditary chief who died in Normandy, and the descendant who inherited his title.
The Bretteville-Chorlais Canadian War Cemetery sits just outside of Caen, France. Nearly 3,000 Canadian soldiers are buried here, like they are in so many Canadian war cemeteries spread across Normandy. Row upon row of gravestones. Story upon story. You don't have to walk far in to get to section 19. It's right up front. Down the 5th row, 4th gravesite, lies Edward Kootenay, an Indigenous soldier with a quiet but remarkable legacy.
Oh, cool.
Josh Goodwill has never seen it like this.
Wow.
He is Edward's great-nephew. How did you feel watching the video?
You can hear the silence, but you can hear so much more. Comrades that, were with him for very last moments. It was definitely overwhelming feeling.
At least 3,000 First Nations people enlisted in World War II, as well as an unknown number of Inuit, Métis, and other Indigenous people, fighting for a country that had threatened their own existence. Edward Kootenay's grave marker says he was a private, but he held a higher rank back home on the Sushot First Nation in Port Alberni, BC. He was a chief, one of his tribe's hereditary chiefs, a traditional title that is passed down through families and is now held by his great-nephew, Josh. So what's the first story you ever heard about Edward?
I heard he was a very smart, intelligent man. My grandfather was always proud of sharing with us over and over again just the immense intelligence that he had and carried and shared with his younger brother.
Edward's military assessment report indicated that he had a very superior learning ability. Like thousands of Indigenous children in Canada, Edward was taken from his family and sent to a residential school. That's him, back row, 3rd from left in the Alberni Indian Residential School band. All that's left of the school now is the girls' dormitory and the memories of survivors who went there. How do you feel knowing that he was a genius? He's an Indigenous person who was a genius, who'd been through the trauma of residential school.
I think it doesn't surprise me because we have a lot of intelligent people in our community. We have a lot of people that are destined for great things and a lot of people that have a lot of good skills despite residential school, despite some of the hardships that they go in life.
Does it surprise you to learn that it was the government and the country that put kids in residential school then? for generations, including Edward's generation and Edward. Yet when he left school, he fought for the country that did that. What do you think about that? How do you feel about that?
I think he thought about his home community. I think he thought about his family. I think he thought about his siblings. I think he thought about his younger brother, my grandfather Albert, and the life that they could potentially live if he didn't put himself forward and put himself in that situation. I think he thought about what the next generations will look like for our community. And I think it's something that's a natural thing for many of us, is that the work we do now is for the next generations.
For Josh, that work is preserving the Sishat language.
And it's a huge responsibility because we don't have many speakers left, and we want to continue to try and revitalize it, strengthen it, keep it going, right? Because it's our identity as who we are as, you know, Sishat and Nuchanoth and Kuas people is our language, right? It was our governance, it was our life.
The Sishat First Nation calls Port Alberni home.
There you go.
But the Indigenous world can be small.
Hello, trick or treat.
Thank you.
As I found out while researching Edward Clutesy. This is something I didn't know until yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So this picture, this is Edward, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's my father.
Mm. Wow.
I knew this picture existed.
Yeah.
I've seen it before, but I did not know that that was Edward and that they knew each other.
Yeah.
That they were the same age.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that we can look at a residential school picture and have a smile about it.
Yeah.
Do you remember being told anything about his death?
The only thing was that he was killed in action. That was all that grandfather told me.
Edward's mortar team was hit by an artillery shell. Death didn't discern their heritage, only that they were soldiers and they died together. Today, we remember them. As you were growing up, even to now, your growing years, how often did you think of Edward?
Every year, Remembrance Day, I think it's a time that we reflect and honor those that stood up for us. I think not just as Indigenous people, but as a family. And I think he did what everyone else wanted to do, was protect the next generations for years to come. And that was sometimes the sacrifices that you had to make. And I think he sacrificed for himself, for his siblings and his family and his community and who we are now. And we're here because of it.
Wamish Hamilton, Port Alberni, BC.
Darius Maravi joins us now for a first look at the weather. What are you tracking out there?
We're continuing to see a lot of water move in over the province. You can see the water vapor here, and it's continuing to move south. So now the south coast starting to get some of that rain. Over the next week and a half, we're going to see a lot of rain come down through parts of the province. It's continuing right now to work its way down the island and into the lower mainland. So we're going to continue to see that rain pick up. We're also going to see some snow at those higher elevations because freezing levels have been coming down. That one isn't going to be too severe, so expect by tomorrow, maybe late morning, early afternoon, we're going to see that rain taper off. But then that next wave comes in as we head into Sunday, into Monday, bringing with it some heavy rain at times and also some gusty winds. So strap in.
All right, thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Still to come, some BC residents are getting fed up as ferry job action continues at Kootenay Lake. We'll hear from some of them next.
I'm Stephen Quinn, and I love living here in Vancouver, BC. It's a city with world-renowned beauty, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. In our new daily podcast, This is Vancouver, we're exploring the diverse range of issues and stories in the city, the good, the bad, and everything in between, as told by the people who live it every day. Don't miss This is Vancouver, available wherever you get your podcasts, and I'll talk to you soon.
Residents on the east shore of Kootenay Lake have been protesting this morning. They're frustrated as continued job action means the Kootenay Lake ferry is restricted to essential services. And as CBC's Corey Bullock reports, emotions are high less than a week into the strike.
For Kootenay Bay resident Cheryl Kavanagh, it's been a tough week, unable to see her mum.
This past week, she's been going through crisis over there. I'm her main advocate. I cannot cross the ferry to see my mom.
Her 90-year-old mother is in extended care in Nelson across the lake, but because the ferry is only running for essential services, Cheryl can't see her mother. She says she's concerned about driving the detour, which would take her through a snowy mountain pass and add hours to her drive.
I'm sick. It's affecting my mom. And it's affecting me.
Cheryl is one of dozens of others who were at the Kootenay Bay Ferry Terminal Friday morning to protest the strike. Since job action started, the ferry is only running for essential services and emergencies 3 times a day and not on weekends, meaning people like students, healthcare workers, and those with medical appointments are the only ones who can cross.
There's a handful of elderly people in Rindell and the rest of the East Shore that will not get their medications, and I think that's they're unfairly suffering over what is, to me, a pretty callous approach to getting their way on with their labor dispute.
Members of the BC General Employees Union have been taking job action since Sunday, demanding training and job opportunities in the community, wage increases, and the expansion of the ferry service. But in the meantime, many residents and business owners want to see the essential services order changed.
Us going across to get our materials is very essential for the well-being of the people on the East Shore. It's pretty straightforward.
You can talk to some people in Nelson, they're not even aware that there is a strike. So I feel like our community is being pretty unfairly targeted here.
Employer Western Pacific Marine says that negotiations are set to continue on November 13th, but it could be weeks before a deal is met. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Kootenay Bay.
Flamboyant BC businesswoman Fay Leung has died. Leung was a real estate agent and prominent member of the Vancouver and Victoria Chinatown communities. But as Belle Puri reports, she'll go down in the history books for her hats and her dealings with the BC Premier.
Fay Leung was instantly recognizable.
How are you?
And known to most as the Hat Lady.
Tally-ho! Clickety-clock, clickety-clock.
Under all the color and flair, however, was an astute businesswoman.
Well, she was a backroom political player. She more or less behind the scenes. She would be in a very circuitous way finding out about everything and everybody.
Most British Columbians best know Leung as the realtor who brought down Premier Bill Vander Zalm and his social credit government.
She symbolized why BC politics is so interesting and pretty crazy sometimes. She's part of the characters that make up our political life in British Columbia.
It was over the sale of Vander Zalm's Fantasy Gardens amusement park. Soon after the pair's friendship crumbled, Leung accused Vander Zalm of not paying her a full commission.
You got a good deal. Everybody got a good deal, but I got the bum rap. I'm the underdog. You guys are stamping all over me. What for?
Eventually, the disagreement cost Vander Zalm his job, as it became evident that he had mixed personal business with his public office. The following year, he was acquitted of breach of trust in a criminal trial.
This is a mock-up of one of the telephone booths that Fay instigated to decorate Chinatown.
Leung is remembered fondly at a Vancouver Chinatown Cultural Centre.
She was just a very warm person. She really cared. She cared about this community. She cared about Canada. She was a Canadian first, but also proud of her Chinese-Canadian heritage.
Leung was a third-generation Canadian of Chinese descent. She was born in Victoria and raised in its Chinatown and in Vancouver's. Fay Leung was 92. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
A look at the day that was in Victoria. People in the capital had a pretty cloudy day out there. Darius Madawi will be back for your full BC-wide weather forecast with a look at what's coming over this long weekend. That is next. It's November, which means it's also the month some men use to raise awareness about prostate cancer by attempting to grow mustaches, also known as Movember. Prostate cancer is the most common cancer in men, with an estimated 1 in 8 Canadian men expected to be diagnosed within their lifetimes. Let's take a look back at how Movember began in Canada.
Sure, it is only day 2, but Adam Garoni and Alan Bedingfield's mustaches should be longer by now, don't you think?
You can really see the razor burn here. It's good.
To them, the mustache is a mo, and this month is Movember.
I'm a mo bro. An official mo bro, because I went to the website, I signed up online, I'm official now.
It's a mustache campaign, a fundraiser to fight prostate cancer that Garoni began just 6 years ago in his native Australia.
Movember started as a joke. It was over beers on a Sunday afternoon. We were talking about 80s fashion and how whatever happened to the moustache.
It's true. New Year's Eve, 1985, a crazy, mixed-up time. Michael J. Fox wore a mustache, Jackson Davies did not. Wayne Gretzky tried a mustache, but obviously failed. By the 1990s, NHL players clean-shaven. Only legendary Canuck Dave Babbage stayed true to his upper lip roots. On the streets today, mustaches, few and far between, often a relic of the past.
I'd say this one's more late 1800s, but...
Frank Snydersick has grown a mustache for 6 months. Why? Well, he too is a mo bro.
Yeah, I'm going to actually start getting donations. And so, donate a little money.
And Movember has been a runaway success, raising more than $50 million worldwide to fight prostate cancer. The disease strikes 1 in 6 men.
Those conversations and sparking a little thought in someone's mind and having them go and get screened is far more valuable than the millions of dollars that we raise.
Now, as a fundraiser, let's put this in perspective. The Weekend to End Breast Cancer asked women to walk 60 kilometers over 2 days. The prostate cancer people say to men, don't shave for a month. Come on.
For me, Movember is the ultimate guys charity, because you can literally, on a Sunday, sit back, watch football on TV, drink a beer, and you're raising money. You don't have to do anything else.
More than 30,000 Canadians have signed up this year, 3 times last year's number, and all it requires is a few weeks of itching and no doubt enduring a bit of ridicule. Bob Nixon, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, someone who's taking his Movember fundraising quite literally to new heights is Canadian Olympian John Montgomery. He launched his mustache to the edge of the stratosphere as part of the annual month-long campaign. John's joining me now. John, we got to ask, what sparked this idea of sending your mustache to space?
Well, I'd love to be able to lay claim to such a genius idea, but it wasn't mine. But a little bit of PR goes a long way to gain attention, get traction, and ultimately bring money into the coffers and grow the mo for the month of November.
Okay, I had not seen these images before, so this is not what I was expecting. John, this is a personal cause for you. Can you explain your connection?
You betcha. When they reached out to find out if I was interested, I jumped at the opportunity because back in 2016, my pop was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And of course, when something touches your own front door, or in this case, your back door for my dad, it's that much more tangible. You can realize that early detection, conversations, and early intervention is the greatest pathway to successful outcomes in treating cancer. And 1 in 8 of us will, meaning men, will have a prostate cancer diagnosis in our lifetime. And so the importance of discussion, awareness, and bringing up men's health, maybe more often than we do right now, is what this is all about.
And take us through what you're hoping to achieve this Movember, besides the stash that clearly is on the move today.
It's coming in. It looks like a little bit like a chia pet. But I guess the ultimate goal would be to continue the work that's already been taking place since 2003 with a casual conversation amongst friends in Australia. The movement has funded over 1,300 projects worldwide, and every single project past that 1,300 is another step towards positive outcomes, finding cures, and ultimately taking care of men's health before it takes care of us. And when men look after their health, communities are ultimately better for that.
And for men who are not quite convinced to jump on board, what would you say to them?
Let her buck. I mean, my pop wore a mustache his whole life, so if I can't sport one for the month of November, well, then I ain't made of much. And I think that we have an obligation to pay it forward. Our fathers, if they were doing their job, instilled in us an obligation that we got to leave this place a little better than we found it. And growing a mustache is a great way to do just that.
John, you wear it well, and it's all for a good cause. Really nice talking to you. We appreciate you joining us.
Nice, Michelle. Cheers. Thanks for having me on.
After a steep and punishing climb after the end of pandemic lockdowns, rent prices are starting to fall. That's the conclusion of a listing agency's monthly report, which calculated a 1.2% decline in October. The CBC's Nisha Patel has that story.
Stephanie Gunn jumped at the chance to move to a new rental apartment.
Looking at prices, they'd really come down over the past couple months.
Now she's living closer to downtown Toronto, and her monthly rent is $700 cheaper.
I hate moving, but it was a really good decision. And even in paying for movers to move here, it's still a significant savings. Over a year, it's huge.
Average rent in Canada has dropped for the first time in 3 years, down 1.2% for all property types. There were steeper declines in big cities. One-bedroom rentals in Toronto and Vancouver sank about 9%. Calgary and Montreal fell more than 4%.
So we have kind of peaked out on the capacity of consumer to pay.
Experts say demand has declined as the federal government changes immigration policy, and there's more supply available.
We have actually seen across the country a very significant increase in rental construction.
But as people searching for affordable housing move to smaller cities, rents in those markets are still spiking. Last month, apartment rents in Saskatchewan jumped 17%.
We've talked to some not-for-profit housing providers across Saskatoon. They have wait lists in the hundreds because they're offering rents that are affordable and subsidized.
Tenants advocates say despite this slight moderation, prices have escalated too much, too quickly since the pandemic.
You're still going to see people scrambling. You're going to see, 3 people living in a one bedroom, one of them on the couch.
He says rents will need to fall much further for many to feel relief. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
It's a story that sounds straight out of a movie. A cryptocurrency CEO kidnapped in the heart of downtown Toronto during the evening rush hour and held on $1 million ransom. The man is safe now, but as Chris Glover tells us, the incident is one that has some in the industry worried.
During Wednesday's evening rush hour, nearby downtown Toronto's busy University and Richmond intersection, a wealthy crypto CEO was allegedly snatched and stuffed into a car.
I'm Dean Skirka, President and CEO at WonderFi. WonderFi is publicly traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange.
A source close to the investigation says the crypto boss Dean Skirka, CEO of WonderFi, was held for a $1 million ransom. Skirka attempted to make the transfer on his mobile device but was unable to, so the source says he reached out to a family member to complete the transfer electronically. After the ransom was paid, Toronto police confirm he was found quite a ways away here at Centennial Park. In Etobicoke, police say he was uninjured and the investigation into what happened continues. In a statement to CBC Toronto, Dean Skirka confirms he is safe and cooperating with police. The safety and security of all of WonderFi's employees are paramount, Skirka wrote. The company can confirm that client funds and data remain safe and were not impacted by this incident. Searching for security footage that may have captured the incident, we've canvassed every single building in this area, and we can confirm police are doing the same work, requesting footage from this condo building Wednesday evening.
People are starting to see the other side. You start to see some of the positive signals in the market.
Skirka's alleged kidnapping happened the same day WonderFi released its third quarter earnings results. The company reported a 153% increase over third quarter 2023.
I catalog as many of these as I come across, and to my awareness, this particular incident is the 171st such physical attack.
Jameson Lobb tracks worldwide kidnappings involving cryptocurrency. The chief security officer at CASA, a company that focuses on crypto security, says people atop crypto companies tend to be targeted.
Anyone who's high profile in the space, and so of course executives tend to be more public, so that puts them more on the radar for people.
The specifics around what happened to Skirka, whether and how he was specifically targeted, remains part of the ongoing police investigation. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up, wildfires leave a trail of destruction and devastation in California. We'll bring you the latest on that story next.
Let's spread some joy. Kick off the holiday season with a day of special programming in support of local food banks across BC. Make the season kind. December 6th.
Firefighters in Southern California are battling a major wildfire that started earlier this week. More than 10,000 people have been forced from their homes, and more than 100 structures have already been destroyed. Steve Futterman has the latest.
You can see the home behind me. This is one of 132 homes that have been burned down completely, and another 88 have been severely damaged. We expect those numbers to rise. It's been a very difficult 48 hours for fire crews battling this fire both on the ground and from the air.
Devastation. I lost everything. The home I was in, I rented for 5 years, and it's completely wiped out.
We didn't get any kinds of warning. Right away, we have to evacuate with simple clothes, and I lost my everything, every single piece of my documents, everything, my money, everything.
Today, people who live in this neighborhood were assessing the damage. We spoke to one woman who lives in a home where the fire came within 50 meters.
It's just a lot of anxiety and heartbreak, and you just feel so sad for the families that have lost their homes. And we love our neighborhood, so it's just really, it's heartbreaking to see it.
This fire captain talked about the difficulty of battling the blaze.
We had from small vegetation on fire to trees to 10, 20, 30 homes well involved all at the same time.
And then there are scenes like this. This home destroyed. Next door, no damage at all. On some streets, it's home after home after home. This is the area that was hardest hit, Old Coach Drive. You see that home? And look down here, look down this street. Home after home after home no longer exists. The Santa Ana winds, which again are the culprit in all this, they're an annual tradition here in Southern California. They have died down to a great extent today, but there's still a slight breeze right now. They come and go. They should stay relatively low for the next 48 hours. Fire crews hope to get the upper hand on the fire during that time. But the Santa Ana winds are going to be back next week. It may not hit Camarillo, but other fire-prone areas are going to have to be on alert for the next month or so. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Camarillo, California.
World leaders expressed outrage today after what Dutch officials are calling anti-Semitic rioting overnight in Amsterdam. The Dutch Prime Minister says he's horrified and ashamed. Israel's Prime Minister compared it to the 1930s anti-Jewish violence. As Chris Brown reports, the target was soccer fans from Israel.
In Amsterdam Thursday night, football hooliganism and politics resulted in a toxic mess that included attacks on Israelis in the streets. With Israeli fans from the Tel Aviv Maccabi soccer club in for a match against a local Dutch team, tensions were running high long before kickoff. This video shows Israeli fans gathering and lighting flares. Police say Maccabi fans ripped down a Palestinian flag. But it was after the match that the violence got out of hand. Israeli fans chanted anti-Arab slogans. Ole, 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 let the IDF win, we will F the Arabs. But then attackers, and it's not clear precisely who, chased Israeli fans through the city's streets as more than 800 Dutch police tried and failed to keep the two groups apart.
One of my son's friends just screamed, "Free Palestine," otherwise they wouldn't let him go. It was a nightmare, and it was very well planned.
Police made more than 60 arrests. While the provocations came from both sides, the city's mayor joined a crescendo of voices saying Israeli fans were victimized for being Jewish. Hateful anti-Semitic rioters and criminals attacked and beat up Jewish Israeli visitors to our city last night, said Femke Halsema. Israeli fans returned home Friday, along with the CEO of the Tel Aviv team.
For them to be running into rivers, to be kicked while defenseless on the floor, to be trying to suggest and beg people to believe that they're not Jewish, that's very, very sad times.
Just how much of the violence was driven by anti-Semitism is difficult to untangle, says this expert.
Every season we will see instances where visiting supporters are injured and hospitalised. It's not something we've particularly seen regularly with supporters of Israeli club sides.
In the aftermath, Dutch police have been given stop and search powers as part of additional security measures. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has appointed his campaign manager as White House Chief of Staff. Susie Wiles is the first woman to hold the job. She's a veteran Republican strategist and one of Trump's longest-serving advisors. Wiles is the daughter of sports broadcaster Pat Summerall. Some U.S. companies are already preparing for the Trump presidency. The shoe company Steve Madden says it's cutting in half the number of goods it produces in China, all to avoid tariffs that Trump has promised to impose. Black people across the U.S. are reacting with shock and anger after receiving racist text messages. Authorities are now investigating at a tense time following Donald Trump's re-election on Tuesday. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
These messages appeared on phones right across the United States, instructing people by name to report to their nearest plantation, where executive slave catchers would pick them up in a brown van at a specific time and place. For the Black Americans receiving those messages, it's creating anger and confusion.
I was shocked. I was scared. I was nervous. I was upset.
Multiple US agencies, including the FBI and Justice Department, are now involved as they try to find out who was behind the messages that were received across more than a dozen states. The FBI has described the language as offensive and racist. And the exact language varied, but the common theme was telling the recipient they had been selected to pick cotton. In some cases, pre-teens at middle school and teenagers in high school received the texts. It comes in the wake of Tuesday's presidential election, and at a time when many people of colour are feeling anxious about what a second Donald Trump presidency may bring. One former police chief feels the messages were timed to coincide with Trump's win.
The messages are likely coming from somewhere else or overseas to instill fear and divide all of us into some level of hatred.
The National Association for the Advancement of Coloured People says hateful rhetoric from the president-elect is to blame. In a statement, the NAACP said the messages were the unfortunate reality of electing a president who it said had embraced and encouraged hate. The Trump campaign has distanced itself from the messages, saying it had absolutely nothing to do with them. Nick Harper for CBC News, Washington.
Darius Madavi is back with the full BC-wide forecast. Darius, what's going on out there?
It's starting to get rainy, and it's only going to get rainier as we head into tonight here in Vancouver. Parts of the interior quite clear. We're going to see unsettled conditions through the weekend, but we're going to see at least some sunshine in virtually all parts of the interior. At some point this weekend, probably going to be Sunday for the south and tomorrow for the north. But here on the coast, really just a lot of wet weather on the way. That's largely because we have this high-pressure system in the Pacific just steering the jet stream and all of those systems right here over BC, which means that pretty much every other day for the next week or week and a half, you can expect to see some systems rolling in and some rain associated with it. But even though the systems are rolling in every other day, don't expect that to just mean rain every other day. There will be showers sprinkled in pretty much everywhere. So expect a lot of wet weather. There'll be calmer periods. There'll be more exciting periods in terms of that wind picking up as well. But snow on the mountains as well. We're going to see lots of snow fall, especially here on the South Coast mountain ranges. And then we're going to see some in the Rockies as well. You can see that next system rolling in Sunday into Monday, more than likely going to hit the Central Coast hardest, although some of it will work its way down here. As always, the west coast of the island can expect to see some fair rain coming down as well. And then, as you can see, Tuesday brings another one that is most likely to affect the south coast most strongly. At least that's what it looks like right now. We are still a little while away. That could change. But for now, it looks like that's going to be the south coast's probably the most rain we're going to get for the next little while. Now, keep in mind, this is just rainfall accumulations for Saturday and Sunday. So this isn't everything that we're going to get, because a lot of that will fall sort of overnight Sunday into Monday. So it's not captured here. But totals aren't going to expect it to be all that high in most places here on the lower mainland. We can expect to see some higher accumulations on the North Shore as usual, as well as in parts of the Tri-Cities, but nothing like what we saw a few weeks ago. This isn't a major atmospheric river event, but there will be a lot of moisture building up, a lot of rain, wet conditions building up, especially once we get into the end of this week or next week. Temperatures aren't that exciting. I'm going to skip this for now, but keep in mind they're probably going to fall a little bit in the north in the days ahead. And if we take a look at our conditions, again, sunny in the north, rainy in the south tomorrow. That's probably going to flip as we head into Sunday. And as you can see here, Michelle, rain, 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 and rain.
All right, Darius, lots of good info there, but don't go anywhere yet because it's Fun Fact Friday, and there were definitely some ominous vibes today.
I'd say so. I mean, I think it's cool, but of course, I imagine you're talking about these clouds here. These are very rare clouds. We're quite lucky to have gotten them here in Vancouver. They only show up, they're only observed really once or twice a year across Canada, and most of the time they pop up in Ontario. So quite unusual to get them here. You can see the waves very clearly in these clouds. These are called asperatus clouds, or some people might say asperatus clouds. I think either pronunciation is correct. But this is a photo taken by our own Eric Pankratz. You can see here another one taken by him. And you just see the swirls and the waves embedded in those clouds. It's not entirely clear what drives these clouds, what conditions lead to them. They often come before or after storms. And they sort of form because of these waves in the atmosphere, these localized waves, which you can really see in the formation of the clouds themselves. They don't usually stick around for too long. They're not rain clouds. They don't bring rain by themselves. But you can just... They're very unusual, and I can see why you would think they are ominous. I can see how they get that impression. These are actually one of the newest types of clouds. They were only deemed a new cloud formation in 2017, along with a few other cloud types, marking it the first time that we've gotten a new type of cloud designated since 1951. So it's been a while. It's pretty hard to get a new cloud type recognized. It's all thanks to this guy. He formed the Cloud Appreciation Society in 2005, and they argued for the addition of asperatus clouds to the cloud atlas, and thankfully he was successful because now we get to appreciate all of these clouds. And thank you everybody who sent us photos.
Lots of great photos coming in, and shout out to our Eric Pankratz for those. Thanks, Darius. Au revoir, Ray Gunn, the controversial and ridiculed Australian Olympic breaker, retires from elite competition. We'll bring you all the details on the viral Aussie after the break.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox.
Save the date and join us on Friday, December 6th at CBC's Make the Season Kind in support of food banks in British Columbia. The annual charity drive is filled with special programming and festive activities. Looking forward to seeing you on December 6th. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter and keep connected with us.
After 11 weeks, the Site C Dam reservoir is fully filled.
BC Hydro announced that the electricity generating unit is already feeding into BC's power grid, and another 5 are set to come online between now and the fall of 2025.
This will increase the province's power production capacity by approximately 8%. Despite the welcome news for the utility, local residents and First Nations are concerned about the impact the site will have.
Now, Australian breakdancer Rachel Gunn, also known as Ray Gunn, says she's retiring from the sport.
What we got, Ray Gunn?
Ray Gunn's unique moves, like the kangaroo hop, gained global attention and backlash at the Paris Olympics. She lost all her battles and failed to score a single point at the Games.
Gunn says she now finds competing too difficult, but that she still dances for fun at home.
Well, with her retiring, that opens up a spot for you if you wanted to compete.
I thought you were going to tell me I should retire. It's been a long few months in the industry. It's time for me to go. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6.
We'll have your next local news at 11 o'clock right after the National. Have a great night.